So Putin sought to punish Ukraine with 600 plus drones and missiles. And the big story is just how it was blunted or blocked. Like Ukraine's air defense has gotten so much better over time. And not only did they blunt most of what Putin was throwing at Ukraine, but Ukraine counterpunched and hit some refineries. We'll talk about all of that and a little bit about the battlefield today. My name is Gerdes. I'm just a professor trying to provide context in the war in Ukraine. If you're not familiar with me, please consider subscribing. You can always break up with me later. Okay, so when I went to sleep last night, I saw this: practically all Ukraine on alert after around 20 Russian cruise missiles launched earlier enter Ukrainian airspace. Okay, so it was going to be a bad night. You knew things were coming. In fact, I was talking to Greg Terry while I was at the grocery store. When I'm at Walmart or whatever, I seem to have conversations with him, just checking in. And he was telling me, yeah, it looks like it's gonna go off tonight. And sure enough, it did. Okay, so here's what happened. 619 missiles and drones fired at Ukrainian cities, killing civilians. Russian cluster munition directly struck a multi-story residential building in Dnipro during a massive barrage involving 580 drones and 40 missiles, leaving 1 dead, 26 injured in the oblast, and 3 people killed across Ukraine. And you can see the damage. It's pretty clear what the damage is. It's just, yeah. And while Lavrov is saying we don't target civilians. No, of course not. They don't target civilians. Who are you going to believe, him or your lying eyes, right? This is what the pattern looks like, the trajectory of the Russian missiles and drones during the overnight attack. Main focus of the attack was Dnipro, Zaporizhia, Mykolaiv, Odessa, frontline positions. So again, and these drones swirl around and then come back, but Dnipro got hammered, it looks like. But again, the air defenses were working just at an amazing rate compared to what kind of damage it could have been. Energy sites and residential areas were hit. Dnipro saw direct strikes. An apartment block was destroyed, leaving casualties and cutting water and power. Pavlograd faced drone and missile attacks. Large fire broke out in industrial facilities in Mykolaiv. Yeah, so things were hit. But again, compared to what? On the night of September 20th, Russia launched one of its largest attacks in recent months, firing 579 Shahed and decoy drones, 8 Iskander ballistic missiles, 32 Kh-101s. Dnipro missile-carrying cluster munitions hit a high rise. 3 people were dead. Strikes also targeted Mykolaiv, Chernihiv, Zaporizhia, Kyiv, Poltava, Odessa, Sumy, and Kharkiv regions. Again, you can see more of the damage and the targets of civilian housing, right? I mean, this is what they're attacking. Okay. So all that to say, 95% or 94%, depending on how you calculate it, 95% of the drones struck, if you just do simple math. And if you look at, okay, so 552 out of 579 Shaheds and other types of drones, if you just look at that, it's 95%. If you include the 2 out of 8 Iskander ballistic missiles, and they have a harder time hitting ballistics than they have hitting cruise missiles, 29 out of 32 cruise missiles were knocked down. And then you get to 94%. That's what they were able to blunt. So about 30 got through, 30 some odd missiles and drones got through to attack when they shot 619. That's a story of improved air defense, and it's hard to knock down these drones and missiles. Here's a moment when an unintercepted Russian cruise missile hit Dnipro early this morning. This is one that got through, right? Now, here's another image. This is a Ukrainian interceptor drone doing God's work amidst Russia's massive attack on Ukrainian cities last night. Here's one that's going to be being shot down. And here's the interceptor going after the drone and hitting it. And there it goes. And it's going to be a big fireball in the sky. That's a drone hitting the drone. Okay. Now, last night, Ukrainian forces intercepted 552 Russian drones. Of these, 20 were downed by Sting anti-Shahed drones developed by Wild and Hornets. The Clear Sky Unit, which defends the skies over Kyiv, reported 50 drones intercepted in one night. This means that at least 12.5% of all drones destroyed were taken down by anti-Shahed interceptors. The thing that everyone agrees on, anti-Shahed drones now account for the largest share of Russian drone interceptions, already surpassing the effectiveness of any other single type of air defense. They're getting better and better and better at this. The first operational unit appeared less than 6 months ago, and the very first Shahed was intercepted in test mode by volunteers in February of 2025. First operational Shahed was 6 months ago? 6 months? Like, they're getting really good at something really quickly. Okay. Just a little bit about it, some Q&A about these Shahed interceptors. I figure this is a really good time to talk about that. How effective are drones that shoot down Shaheds? Interceptors, Sting, achieve about 60 to 90% effectiveness depending on crew experience and radar setup. How many interceptors are needed to take down one Shahed? In 8 out of 10 incidents, a single Sting was enough to destroy a Shahed. Are interceptors fast enough to catch a Shahed? Yes, Sting is substantially faster than Shahed or Gerber-type drones. From the target detection to neutralization typically takes 10 to 15 seconds. That's fast. Okay. People say interceptors are expensive. Is that true? Interceptors are more expensive than a standard kamikaze drone, but they're far cheaper than man-portable missiles or aircraft-fired missiles. Prices and effectiveness vary by manufacturers, but our Stings are among the most affordable, just over $2,000. $2,000. That's crazy cheap. Can Ukraine produce 1,000 interceptors per day? Because they were just talking about that in the news just yesterday or the day before. Yes, Ukrainian defense manufacturing has the capacity to build thousands of interceptors daily. This is the way you're looking at the wave of the future with the interceptors. So this is the next evolution of drone warfare, like, just like FPVs, and then you had better FPVs, and then you had now we're all the way to AI FPVs, right? So it's the same kind of thing here. Shaheds, where there were real clunky propeller types, now they're jet powered, and they're getting better, but so are the interceptors at the same time. Here's an image of one of tonight's strikes on Saratov, shifting gears to the other story. This would have been the big story if it wasn't for the massive strike on Ukraine and how well Ukraine has stood up to it. Because there were 2 or 3 strikes, there were actually 3 strikes, 2 oil refineries, and something else last night. So Saratov, here's another view of this fire from the territory of Saratov oil refinery. The attack is still ongoing. Here's Ukrainian attack drones. At least 3 successfully hit Russia's Saratov refinery tonight. So there are multiple attacks on Saratov alone, and then there are 2 other attacks in other places. Saratov oil refinery was struck by Ukrainian stealth drones, according to an eyewitness. They called them invisible. I don't know that Ukraine has anything like a stealth drone. It's probably that just the eyewitness thought that, I didn't see it coming. I didn't hear it. But then there was this big boom, and yeah. Okay, so where is this? Saratov refinery is over here, and the other refinery is up here. So not only the Saratov refinery, which produces annually over 7 million tons in oil products, was hit by Ukrainian drones last night, but also the Novokubaishevsk refinery in the Samara region was hit here. Okay, some more about this. The Novokubaishevsk oil refinery was the second one targeted tonight. This refinery has a capability or capacity of 7.9 million tons of oil per year. Second time that it's been targeted since the new campaign of strikes on refineries. That began on August 1st, and it was previously hit on August 2nd. And again, they don't seem to have any real air defense or significant air defense around these refineries, so they just keep getting hit. The general staff confirms that Ukrainian forces struck 3 key targets overnight in Russia's Saratov and Samara regions. The Saratov and Novokubaishevsk oil refineries and the Samara oil pumping station. I don't know what to tell you about the oil pumping station, but apparently 3 big hits. That would have been enough for the big story today for in the morning, right? But okay, we got to cover that. Now, there's another big story here too. So here we have 1,070 Russians off the battlefield, one tank, 3 armored fighting vehicles, 31 artillery systems, 124 vehicles and fuel tanks. But I highlighted this. Okay, there's 1,100,600. 100,000 beyond the million that they've lost as of, like, say, June. And so 100,000. And what's the time period? So here's when it actually happened. We're across a million. June 12th, 2025, Ukraine says Russia's military losses have topped 1 million in 3 years of war. Okay. So between June 12th and here's a calculator, June 12th, and today is September 20th. Look at that. It's 100 days. They lost 100,000 in 100 days. That's what just happened. Okay, so it's just the picture's just not good for Russia on many fronts. Casualties remain high, engagements drop. Now, Russian forces are advancing in Konstantinivka and Zaporizhia Oblast near Liman and Novopolivka, but at what cost? I mean, they're taking little ground, little by little, but 1,000 people a day for 100 days. Here we see a 6-kilometer corridor is left for Ukrainian troops around Liman, north of Seversky Donetsk River. We're in a prelude to the Battle of Sloviansk. Okay, yeah, things are still moving that direction. Yesterday, I talked about all the positive news that was happening because it was all pretty much positive news. Like the encircle, like when you look at this, like one area cut off and another area cut off and another area potentially cut off. Things are happening. 100,000 in 100 days. That's the losses. And to backfill those losses, the Russians need to do something. So here they're looking at things like this. Russia, in coordination with Iran, is ramping up the recruitment of Middle Eastern mercenaries, including ex-ISIS fighters, for the war in Ukraine, according to Ukrainian intelligence. Why? Because they don't want to have another mobilization effort in Russia, because if they do that, they could have some kind of political unrest, and Putin desperately wants to avoid that. But he has to backfill the 100,000 lost in 100 days. Recruits from Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, Libya, and Yemen are being lured with promises of 3,000 to 8,000 and Russian citizenship. Routes through Iran and Central Asia are being used to move them into Russia. So that's Putin's latest plan in order to backfill his military. All right, we'll leave you with this. On this day in 1951, first deportations of Operation Osin began. 20,000 Lithuanians were forcibly deported to Siberia as the USSR continued to liberate them from fascism 6 years after World War II ended. Imagine mass deportations happening today. All right, so that's it, my friends, and we'll leave you with this shout out. The shout out goes to R. Wolf. R. Wolf is a graduate Patreon member, and thank you to R. Wolf, and thank you to the rest of you. Tell me what you thought about what you heard today. So Ukrainian defense is getting better, and Poland understands this because they spent $400,000 shooting down 4 Russian Shahed drones. 400,000. Ukraine, it cost them for each interceptor. I mean, the cheaper interceptors cost 2,000 each, as opposed to 100,000 to shoot it from an aircraft. And yeah, NATO's not prepared for this, but Ukraine is. And that's where we are. And then we know the battlefield, what's going on with the 100,000 in 100 days, and 3 good hits on 2 refineries and an oil depot. Tell me what you thought about what you saw today. Thank you for your time, the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.